So what else is new? What else is going on since we last talked yesterday?
Was it yesterday?
Yeah, we caught up for a bit yesterday.
Stormy. And you'll say you can keep that out there or something.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you can keep that shit out there.
we had like 10 weeks of, and I guess we need it. Like we need the moisture, but we had 10 weeks of like the faux spring, like, and now full blown like just cold and wintry and snowy. So
yeah, I woke up with a headache this morning, and like the house was super warm while it got humid overnight. So of course, you got the heater on because it's winter, and like the other day it was really really cold, and now we're back to it was like humid. I actually opened the windows for a little bit to just like cool down the house because it actually got really hot.
Yeah.
With all the humidity outside.
How humid?
Let's see. Humidity. I don't see it. It's not on my little weather app here. At least it's not showing up immediately. But I mean, they're calling for rain later. So, but yeah, it's like that spring. You're mentioning spring. Like that spring humidity, like that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's signs that spring's not too far off.
Around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's even funnier, or what is funny, is Monday, it being President's Day. We took the kiddo bowling.
I saw pictures.
Yeah, my sister-in-law brought my niece and nephews down, and Randy commented on the pictures. He was there 10 minutes before we got there.
Really?
He just left. Like it was funny. It was like he had just left and we had gotten there. But it was fun. It was his first time taking the kiddo bowling. He had a blast. He's like, he wants to do it again. So we're like, we can do that. That's a nice rainy day activity.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds fun. Is your, and I don't know how hot it gets in Philly, but are you gonna have to put your fire pit stove away, or still be able to pull it out in the evenings?
No, I'll still be able to pull it out in the evenings, even in the summer. An evening, have the fire pit out, at night. You can definitely do that. Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, when we get into July, you're not going to want it out in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
But like, there were points last summer after the sun went down. I had the fire pit out. Like go outside with a drink and just chill with the fire pit outside.
That sounds lovely.
It's actually been a little too cold lately, or at least it was in early January. And then just with everything else, I haven't had a chance to get it out, but it was a little too cold a couple times. I'm hoping, as the weather, at least the really cold stuff goes away, I can break out the fire pit.
Yeah.
And start burning stuff.
Sounds nice.
Yeah.
Sounds nice. I should pick me up one of those stoves.
Oh, they're fun.
Yeah.
And like, so I got it as a Christmas gift. Christmas 2020. Suzanne got it for me. And like we got like the smaller one, and eventually I know I'm going to upgrade to the medium sized one, the one in the middle. I would definitely recommend that one. I mean, the one we have is nice and small. I'm not going to get rid of it anytime soon. It's great for like if you go camping. You can take it with you, and like it's easy to store, carry, clean, all of it.
Yeah.
If you take it, you can go to a campsite, and they may just give you the basic fire ring. This you can have a little bit nicer. I would, for the house, I would get maybe the bigger one.
Yeah.
But they're nice.
Yeah. Cool.
And then they've got some nice accessories to go with it. Of course, the accessory game.
Yeah. You got to upsell.
Yeah. But like they've got like the little basket you could put over top of it to prevent the embers from when the wood cracks, from the embers from that coming out of the top of it.
Yeah.
I don't have that one, but I've got like, a couple of the other pieces. And I'll tell you this, like they've got like the set for like roasting marshmallows and cooking food or whatnot, like the steaks.
Yeah.
They're nice.
Have you done a steak? Have you cooked on it, or?
I haven't cooked on it. but we've done like s'mores with the kids.
Okay.
We've had like friends and nieces and neighbors over, and like we've done that, and they clean up really, really well.
Cool. Yeah, I should invest in one. I have dreams of I mean, I've got a canyon pass to get up into all the local canyons because they charge a use fee to drive into
Hmm.
the canyon. So I have a canyon pass. I can just drive up there. There's this incredible canyon 10-minute drive from my house. And I probably go up in there once a year. I'm like, this is like stupid. Like I could literally say, you know what? I'm just gonna go hang out in the canyon for the afternoon and take it off and take my little stove up and make a little like. It's
Hmm.
crazy that I don't take advantage. So I have these dreams of like, okay, one day I'm gonna decide like I'm gonna make better use of that canyon and just go chill
Yeah.
and get some zen. So
Hmm.
we'll see if I can make it happen.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. So I spent the fall working on the side of the house, and there's a little bit more I want to do when the springtime comes around. But that's where I've got the fire pit right now. And
Yeah.
I have dreams come March of like, Friday night after putting the kiddo to bed, just kind of going outside and either with like a book, like or something, and just chilling outside at the fire pit.
Yeah. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah, like, and it's so like ever since my father passed, like all of a sudden I've gotten like this itch to do home improvement projects.
Mm.
Like my dad was always handy, and like I was always there helping him do stuff. And then he, when we bought this house, he came over and helped us with a few things. But now I've like got like the real itch. It's like I'm looking at this one part of the basement which is unfinished, and I'm like, ooh, now if I got this and I had this, maybe I could frame it out and, maybe, finish that off a bit more, and I could do this and I could do that. And so now it's just making a list and getting myself organized to
Hmm.
actually be able to harness that kind of energy.
Yeah, I can see you doing that.
Yeah. No, I'm actually like I've been talking to Suzanne. I'm like I've got this itch, and I don't know if whether it was just like kind of going through memories as we were preparing, for my dad's funeral and like all of the crap he did in the house that we grew up. Like there's this funny story. I was in grade school at the time, and after they bought the house, like the way the house was, like there was a space out back that they put a deck on, and like there was like the kitchen window looked out on the deck, and then the family room kind of came off the dining room, and then from there was a window looking out onto it. And he had always talked about putting a sliding glass door on there. Well, in the middle of January, we come home from school, and he had knocked a hole in the side of the house to install a sliding glass door.
That's awesome.
And he did, like like my mom has memories of my sister like wrapped up in a blanket because there's a big hole in the house in the middle of January.
Yeah.
But like thinking
I
of
mean,
like those
timing
stories,
could have been better, but it happened.
but it happened and he got it done.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna see how. Let's see how you're gonna take this and transition it into our topic. I'm guessing you have something in mind.
Actually, I really don't. If anything, I was just thinking like a quick rehash of what we talked about last week because I want to continue the conversation. It turned out to be like I knew it was gonna be a fun one, but I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And it was the idea of passive versus active, like ownership or management of a company.
Mm.
And we
Hmm.
looked at it from the perspective of a customer. And really we focused in on what you and I both have great examples of is like the small town local mom and pop restaurant places that kind of pop up and they're great, or like those that have been around for a while. But we were talking really about the ones where like they start out really, really good and they're a great place to go and they're a favorite of people, but then something changes.
Hmm.
People recognize there was a change. And we focused on like whether it's like the ownership kind of gets distracted, like we talked about like the pull of the glitz and glamour of, oh, you could be a franchiser, no, at this point you need to have 10 locations built. But then we also talked a bit about like giving credit to those that really kept focus on how the business got started and how it became successful.
Yeah.
So I want to dig into that. And we did touch on it in bits. I want to maybe touch on it a little bit more around the concept of quality
Yeah.
when it comes to this. And I also want to touch on the idea of regular customers.
Mm.
So, again, we talked about it from the perspective, mostly from the perspective of a customer. Both you and I gave examples of, again, the businesses that we know like that were great, and then all of a sudden something changed and you could recognize it, and then those that we know that we go to all the time and it's a great experience. And we you get to know as the customer, as a customer, the people there. It's like the regular staff and whatnot. So
Hmm.
I want to look at it from the perspective of the business and the idea of regular customers. And how can this metaphor, this example that we're giving of like the small town restaurant, um, how can that be applied to a business like ours? How can
Hmm.
that be applied to businesses that are a little bit bigger? What does it mean to be a regular customer? But I kind of just ranted there, kind of just getting my thoughts out there of where I really want to go with this topic, and it's a lot to unpack. So let's let's talk a bit more about the idea of quality. What is a quality experience? What does that mean? Having a quality experience from the perspective of like maybe a smaller business, and yeah, like what does it mean like when those things start to change? Very broad questions, maybe even not even great questions, but just
No,
kind of something to get us going.
it's a really good question, and I think quality and experience comes from. Oh no! The prime truck is here, making its daily stop. Speaking of prime, while I delay while Sadie's upset at the prime driver, I I bought one of these to play around with. It's it's
The
like
Wacom tablet.
yeah, the tablet for the computer.
Hmm.
And I bought it at 6 o'clock the other night, just as a like random purchase. It was like super cheap. It was like half price or something on Amazon. I'm like, this would be stupid not to buy it. So I bought it at 6 o'clock, and it arrived at 9 o'clock that night.
Wow, that's insane.
This dog is crazy.
Yeah, so there's at least, yeah, I think it's still there. There's a Amazon distribution center in Newcastle, Delaware. Is it Newcastle or Newark? No, not Newcastle, Newark, Delaware, which is maybe about an hour away from here. And like back before they had like same day delivery, and overnight delivery wasn't as big. Like the big thing was 2-day delivery. And that was the big sell on Amazon Prime, getting the
Yeah,
free 2-day delivery.
yeah.
I would know if anything came out of there, we would actually get it next day.
That's crazy. I mean, talk about good experiences. Like,
Yeah.
we can say what we want about Amazon and kind of dog is like gagging herself. She's so upset at the driver.
Mhm.
But they've thought about the entire experience from purchasing online to delivery, and it's just and I guess maybe that was a good segue for what I wanted to talk about anyway. They've been deliberate in thinking about the entirety of the experience, and I think a lot of businesses tend to think about certain aspects of the business, like, well, we want to have like the product be a good experience, or we want to have when you come, pick something up, or when you place an order. But experience is everything, right? It's the sum of all of the touch points that you have with the company go into defining that experience. And you can tell the companies that have thought deliberately about designing a really high quality positive experience, because it's clear they've thought about all of these different touch points and made it happen. And I think that tends to happen on a bigger scale, right? Because it's hard to do once you start growing and you're a bigger company. um on the flip side of it, I think there are companies that just have a purpose of doing things differently, and this is kind of your smaller companies where I don't even know if they're thinking about it. And I can't remember if we were on air or off air when we talked about it last week, but there's an Ace Hardware down the street, like
I
locally
think we were
owned.
off air.
Okay. locally owned, like this small little shop, literally in a neighborhood. It's not even in an industrial commercial part of town, and I don't know that their owners are really sitting down and having strategy meetings about what kind of experience do we want our customers to have. But it's clear that whatever they're doing, that there's something fundamentally different about the experience of going into that Ace Hardware versus going into Home Depot. And it is just such a fantastic experience every single time. The last time I was there, and this is what we were talking about off air last week, was I had a automatic sprinkler issue last year. It was not a very straightforward fix. I went into the Ace Hardware, an older gentleman there that had been working. I'm like, all right, man, here's the problem. And he pulls out a piece of paper and a pencil and starts diagramming and sketching. He's like, all right, here's what we're going to do, and then runs off and gets all the parts. And then, it's just, he's like, let me know how that works out, and then the cashier up front was super friendly. I'm like, I would never, well, it would be a 1 in a million, 1 in, 100,000 chance that I would have that experience at Home Depot. It seems like I have that experience every single time
Mhm.
at that location.
And that's actually, Ace Hardware, they're franchises. They're, to use a cliche, locally owned. Um, so that's what they pride themselves on. I worked with Ace Hardware several years ago. And that was one of the things they did. They prided themselves on that, it was your local hardware store. So the owners had, like your typical franchise had the power of like a nationally recognized name,
Hmm.
um, the distribution networks and whatnot, but they still had to run the business. It wasn't like just a corporate, another corporate store. This was something they had to run. So yeah, like that kind of experiences. That's actually one of the things they pride themselves on with their setup enables for that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how they know they can that's how they try to compete with your Home Depots and Lowe's.
It, and I think we've thought about that as well, right? We've talked about, what does it mean to like a small business
Mhm.
like ours? We've talked about that a ton. In that we're realistic. Like we from a pure like firepower, muscle, ability to staff engagements, we can't compete with Accenture or, you know, Deloitte or Infosys or Infotrust or what. Like we can't compete with these multi-thousand consultant agencies. We just can't do it. Um and in fact, we can't compete from just a pure staffing perspective with like the 100, 200 person agencies. And so we've talked about it's like, well, what makes us different? What can we do that those other agencies simply can't do? And we've kind of, it's kind of the classic David and Goliath story where we've said, okay, well, we'll make what we do about really humanistic, hands-on, experience-based services in such a way that other companies that have other advantages over us that we won't have would be unable to compete. So while they may be able to compete on size, they're going to have a really really difficult time competing with us on experience.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's such a fascinating it's such a fascinating conversation. And my mind always goes to I continually go back to the Simon Sinek TED Talk from it was a long time ago because it seems like it was a long time ago because the video quality is really sketchy. But it's the one where he's talking about the iPod and it's really
Yeah.
he's talking about like why do companies do business, and it's all about purpose, and revenue's not a purpose, revenue's an output, an outcome. But you can tell I think for us, because we've been so deep in thinking about experience, that it almost has become second nature for us to go out into the world and be like, okay, I can tell that this company has made revenue their purpose. Or I can tell that, this company, I don't know what it is, but their purpose is something other than revenue, because you can tell. It's just a completely different experience with them, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And it's funny because you made me think of like you have the story with the local hardware store, and I mean that's come to mind too. I've had those experiences as well where you kind of go in, it's like I'm looking for this kind of screw. Like, I mean, no lie, this happened. Like, I'm looking for this kind of screw. And he's like, all right, come with me, come with me. And has like, it takes me over to this aisle where it's nothing but a bay of drawers. And he starts pulling stuff. He goes, here's what you need. And like, down to like literally helping me find a specific screw.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I've had that as well, and we spent a lot of time talking about like the small mom and pop restaurant. And I gave like the story of like the Jersey Shore. Like it's a tourist area, but the population drops by 80% in the off season, and the off season is Labor Day all the way through to Memorial Day. So 9 months out of the year is the off season. Those 3 months, the population explodes with all the tourists. But
Mm-hmm.
in those towns, like it's the way it is. And like I've never been to the Outer Banks, but I've talked to family about the Outer Banks. It's very similar there. But then you think of other tourist towns like a Vegas or an Orlando, or something like that, where it's all chain places. These places, like if it's a chain, it's 5 stores across 5 towns, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
or it's 1 or 2 restaurants that they own. And I'm trying not to get too off topic, but like that's the visual as I think of this, like the active versus passive ownership. I think of these kind of restaurants and like the experience going in the off season, where normally these places and a lot of them are small and quaint, but the food's good, and for a lot of people it's tradition going there. But like it may be a 45-minute wait, a 50-minute wait in the summer. You walk right in and the majority of the restaurants open to you. You walk in like, all right, grab a table, we'll be right over. But the experience with that is you've got the owner behind the counter.
Yeah.
The owner may even be like the one who takes your order, kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. Or you see the same regular people over and over again. And like they like when you were talking earlier about like they're not sitting there thinking about what a quality experience is. It's with a business like this, it's like we don't have time to sit down and come up with like the corporate, like this is what it means to work here and this is what it means for Joe's coffee shop experience. It's no, it's this is just the way it is, and the those people that are there, like it's just part of who they are.
Yeah, and I think we talked about the story of the local sandwich shop where the owner was always there making the sandwiches,
Yeah.
and it it's something that I don't think you can replicate. You can get close, but I think it's probably near impossible to replicate. Having the owner actively engaged in the business just is something that is incredibly hard to replicate.
Hmm.
And I think it can be incredibly advantageous to have that there because it instantly brings a whole other level of care. I think it shows a great example for the rest of the team on how to interact and treat with customers. And so it's just it's a hard thing to compete against. In fact, I was talking to a prospect a couple weeks ago, and they flat out asked me. They said, "Well, what makes you different then?" And then they said, a name of a competing agency, like a mid-size agency, 500 or 50 to 150 person consulting company. Like, what makes you better than them, or what makes you different than them? I'm like, I own this company, and I am actively involved in not only selling, but I work with our clients. I talk to them every day. I talk with our team about how things are going. I know the CEO and owner of that other agency. He's backpacking across Europe and, fishing out in the Black Sea or having all these adventures. And yay for him. That's awesome. He has no idea what's going on with his company. And I will tell you that fundamentally, the experience you will have with us is completely different you will have than have with them. The work may be the exact same. Like you may get the output, the quality output may be the exact same. But having a positive experience and something that's going to be memorable and you're going to be glad you did it, they simply can't compete with that. And I can tell you that without a fact because I'm involved every day, and you just simply can't replicate that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a secret weapon, you know.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the one of the things we did touch on last time. Is that like this is the hardest thing when it comes to scaling a business. Like this is the hardest thing to do, at least in my experiences, is um yeah, this kind of like the care the owner brings.
Mm-hmm.
So but thinking of that, like you were talking there, like you had a prospect talking to you about like what makes this different. You're like, well, I'm the owner. I'm here every day. Like I'm talking to prospects. I'm talking to clients. I'm actively involved. Like what is your then definition? Like, how do you think of what it means to be a regular customer of 33 Sticks? And let me ask you why I'm asking that question the way I am. Again, using our examples of the small mom and pop business. Like, if we look at the ones that are in seasonal towns, yes, you make the majority of your money during the on season when the crowds are there. But the regulars who wait for the crowds to go away, whether they live in the town permanently and they're part of the remaining 15 to 20% that are there in September and October and
Yeah.
November, or they're ones like my wife and I who have no problem jumping in the car at 8 a.m. on a Saturday to just go down and take a ride and see the beach in March. And we'll stop by one of these places to eat while we're there. These are your regulars. They're the ones that get you through the lean times,
Mm-hmm.
the low season and whatnot. And the reason why I'm asking this question, because I was talking with a client yesterday, and it's actually someone that was involved in the engagement when we first kicked off with them 6 years ago. And then he had since moved on to other positions in the company, and now he's taking on a new role. And he reached out with a question, and like what he's going to be building is still like in the conceptual phases. Hold on, I forgot to mute my phone. So it's like dinging left and right. Um, uh, and it's in the early conceptual phases. So we're one of the first ones he asked, to like start giving him some input on what he's building. I'm like, this is the regular person that comes into my restaurant in November when all the crowds are gone. And this is the like, am I making sense? Like, is this metaphor translating?
Yeah, oh yeah, very very much so. And I think for lots of, especially small businesses like ours, you're right. It's the regulars that keep the company going. They smooth things out. They're your consistency. They're the ones that are there when you need them the most. And specifically, we've talked about restaurants, in the first part of the pandemic. Restaurants, I mean, I guess all through the pandemic, but very early on hit incredibly hard during the pandemic, and where we didn't have indoor dining, or there's like it was really challenging. And I've heard from several small restaurant owners say it was our regulars that helped us survive. They stepped up. They were coming in and tipping 3,000% and like crazy stuff, right? It's like because they are invested in us as we're invested in them and the community, and it was because of them that we survived. So I think we can think about those lean times, and when there's challenges, the regulars are the ones that are there to step up, but they're there the whole time. And I think they're really the lifeblood of any small business, because to your point, like they help kind of bring things through season to season. They're the ones that are showing up, but they're also ones that are your biggest advocates. And they're out there selling for you because they're talking to their friends and saying, "Hey, you've probably done the same." It's like, you really, if you're down on at the shore, you really got to go to this place. And so it even extends beyond just being a customer. They become part of your sales and marketing arm, and they really need to be cared for and really appreciated. And we've definitely tried to do that with our regulars. In fact, we've tried to design the business in such a way where most of our customers are regulars. We'll have the occasional transient customer that comes in and then, has a cup of coffee and then leaves. And that's okay. It kind of provides a nice little bump, maybe a change of pace. But for us, we really built this for regulars. This is the place where we want that kind of hometown feel, like the cheesy, like, cheers, everybody knows your name, like, that's
I have the theme song playing in the back of my head as you were leading up to that.
That's what we've tried to create. And it's not lost on me how important those customers are. You mentioned this one that has been around for 6-7 years. Like, it's not lost on me that customers like that have been critical in our health as a company and our ability to grow, and our ability to do wonderful things for our employees. So it is not lost on me how important those regular customers are. And I think it's also important to not take them for granted. I think, you can kind of get to a place where it's like, they always, Jim always shows up and gets his sandwich here, so we didn't, we'll just expect it to happen. It's like, in fact, we actually need to think the opposite. We need to go out of our way to make sure that Jim is happy and celebrate him coming in, and not take it for granted that he's just going to show up. And so that's something that I think about all the time. How can we keep ourselves from becoming complacent that, 6-year customer is just going to keep showing up, because it's an easy trap to fall into. But one we need to remember we need to avoid, because they are so critical to our success.
And the one thing also to think about with your regular customers is they may not be the biggest spender in a single visit.
Right.
They may be the one who is stopping into the restaurant for, just a slice of pie and a cup of coffee. They're not getting the full meal. They're not getting the appetizer. They're not getting an entree. It's just, husband and wife, stopping in, or, parent and child, like, hey, let's stop in. Let's get, a cup of coffee and a slice of cake or a slice of pie. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, I think of that, like, I know places that people do that. They just go up to, there's like a little like bar area, and you can kind of go up, grab a seat, get that. They're not going to spend that much in a single visit versus maybe someone who's in town for one time only, and they come in and have a big dinner there. And if we were to apply that to like a business like ours, it's very easy to get distracted by the big contract. Whereas, that regular, they may not have the biggest contract per se, but they're there year after year. And
Mm-hmm.
that's to your point, taking them for granted and getting distracted. That's the one big mistake I think businesses make when it comes to their regular customers. And regular customers is not meant to, like, people think of like, oh, the regulars. Regular, it's frequency. They're there, you know, all the time. It's not to say, oh, they're just regular versus, special customers, for lack of a better term. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to clarify that, like, calling someone a regular customer is not meant to be a like a status, or a denotion of like status of, better customer versus less. But I think businesses do make that mistake. They look at, purchase value
Yeah.
instead of frequency.
Yeah, and lifetime value, and again, the values that are above and beyond the invoice,
Hmm.
right? In that, as a loyal long-term customer, the revenue you're collecting from that customer is just one part of the equation. And them advocating for you, them helping you sell deals, them marketing for you, you have to put a value on that, because that is incredibly, incredibly valuable. And you need to think about that, because I definitely think um it helps these businesses achieve what they're trying to do. And a lot of times, it doesn't even need to be over and above like craziness or big things. Like, sometimes it can just be incredibly small things. And I'll share 2 examples. So I think I talked about the local burger place. I can't remember if we talked about it on the podcast, but I went to the local, and we did talk about JCWs and being able to scale to like 4 or 5 locations,
Yes.
and
Yep.
they've been able to do it really well. I went there the other day, and they took like 5 seconds to write like a nice little message on the fry sauce lid. It's like sometimes,
That's how we kicked off the conversation.
yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be as simple as that. There's a hometown restaurant in the college town that I went to college, that I lived in for 5 or 6 years while I was going to college. Single location, and this may seem silly, but one of the things that made me feel the best is the day that I got to sit in the front, um, because so you have like the restaurant was split into 2 pieces. So it had this large dining room kind of in the back, and then up front you had this really thin old school classic diner where you had the actual diner to the
Hmm.
bar, and then you
Yeah.
had like one row of booths, and it was kind of small, and they reserved that section for like the hardcore locals. And so all the college kids, the transients, they would get in the back, right? Like, and the day that I showed up and I got seated in the front, I'm like, oh man, I feel so special, And it didn't
Yeah.
really take anything other than them letting me sit in the front, but man, it made me feel good and appreciated.
Yeah.
So
No, no, I totally get that. Like I have memories as a kid of places like that my grandparents would take me, or like, yeah, yeah, like there's some I'm not gonna get into, but like some of my grandparents would take me, or my parents would take me, and they would like, like these places made you feel special.
yeah,
And again, like they're not sitting there saying like, what is our mission statement, what is our experience. It's just like, it's inbred, and yes, the owner's involved. That is the secret weapon, and
yeah,
it is very hard to scale that. Like, how do you scale your, the mentality that your employees give a shit like you do? It's hard, and I don't want to make it like seem easy, because it's not. And that's why I do. I think like these. What's that?
that's Will.
Oh, um,
He's got a huge smile on his face for some reason.
oh, nice, nice.
You want to be on camera? The people want to see you. Don't pinch your fingers in the door. Okay.
Um, like they're not sitting there, like, having, again, like, meetings, like brainstorming sessions with a whiteboard, and what does it mean to come into our restaurant? No, it's like, this is my restaurant,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be here on the front lines with my employees, and um I'm going to do the same things I'm going to expect you to do, because that's the other thing too, is the biggest way to turn most people off is being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And like, I one of the jobs I worked early in my career, the manager, like the general manager, was like, I wouldn't ever ask you to do something I wouldn't do. Well, when it came, except when it would come to this. And well, except when it would come to that. So that was just a big lie.
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't something like that. But then, and it shows in the way the employees act.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I think we spend, when I say we, like you, me, others in the companies have been spending a lot of time thinking about like, just how do we make that organic and natural? Because you can tell when this works. He thinks he's so sneaky. Come on, come get on camera. Say hi. uh quickly got through. But I think it comes down, I think you're right. I think it comes down to caring and leading by example. And I was thinking about this. So I recorded this YouTube video like 11 or 12 years ago about an experience I had at a hotel in Santa Monica, and I titled it "Just Care." I'm like, I had and this was like not a fancy hotel by any means. It was a very budget hotel, um, down by the beach, but it was such a phenomenal experience because every single person that I ran into in that hotel, like, I'm like, every one of these people care. It is so bizarre to me. And it just made for such an amazing, wonderful experience. And again, like, that doesn't need to be expensive. You don't need to like invest a huge budget in making people care. It's just care. And it really, and I'm going to share one story, because you brought up your grandparents. There was a so my grandpa owned a franchise, a Hallmark franchise, on a small main street in the town he lived in. And also on that main street was a drugstore. So think of like an independent Walgreens or CVS.
Yep.
It had greeting cards, it had knickknacks, it had your pharmacy, uh,
I know
and
exactly the type you're talking about.
and it
I've
had
been to one.
a little lunch counter.
Yeah.
And my grandpa would take me, at least once a week, it seemed, to that drugstore to have lunch, and we'd get a greasy hamburger and fries and a shake. And to this day, I'm convinced that's the greatest hamburger in the world. But part of me is thinking, I don't know that it was really that great of a hamburger, but the experience was so incredible. It didn't matter who was working or who was behind the counter that day. If we went in there, it was, "Hey Frank, how you doing? How's business? I was in the store the other day. I saw, you got some new shipments in. You having a caramel marshmallow shake today?" Which was his favorite. "Oh, I see you have your grandkids with you." And it just was, every time you were made to feel like you were the only one in that store. Like,
Yeah.
you were made to feel special, and it didn't take any extra effort or work from them. It just felt natural. It was like who they were.
Well, you hit on it. It doesn't cost a lot. And I think that's part of the problem is as companies try to scale this, they think they can just throw money at this problem.
Hmm. Yeah.
As they start to scale and again, the thing is the other thing too about your regular customers, we talked about how, they're going to help you get through the lean times. They're going to be your biggest advocates. We touched on it last week from the perspective of the customer. You also need to think of it as as the business owner. Your regular customers are going to be the first ones to notice when things change. They're
Hmm.
going to be the first ones who notice when quality goes downhill. Quality, whether that being quality of the food, quality of some other kind of product that you're selling. Um, maybe you're not, maybe you've changed distributors or something and the quality just isn't there like it used to be. They're going to notice a change in just employee demeanor. They're
Hmm.
going to be the first ones to notice. And I think like I kind of went on a little mini rant toward the end of last week's episode where I was saying like it ticks me off when people like when people kind of give you crap for complaining about something that you frequently buy or go to or something like that. No, it's like you being there frequently, you buying that product frequently, you notice when the quality changes.
Yeah.
You notice that you're the first one to pick up on it.
Yeah.
Um,
Eh, eh,
so I mean,
oh, go
good.
ahead. No, go ahead.
So I was gonna say like that's the other the third key piece when talking about your regular customers is they're going to be the first ones that notice when things change.
Hmm.
So talking about like businesses when they try to scale that experience where the experience the customers were getting when the owner was active in the day-to-day running, the day-to-day management of stuff. And I get it. Like, if you do want to scale, if you want to grow your business, it is something that, you may not be able to be involved in the day to day like you used to, but how they try to solve the problem with it is just throw money at it.
Yeah.
Here's a budget to make customers happy. Here's our make customers happy budget. If
Hmm.
someone's complaining about something, pull money out of this, pull money out of that, instead of getting to the root of the problem, which is how do we make sure that the employees, that there is a culture
Yeah.
that the employees care the way ownership does.
I mean, that's it, right? I mean, that really is the gold nugget of this conversation, is that, yeah, I mean, as you grow and you scale, it's okay, well, let's throw money at it. Let's put together a playbook that we'll send to our employees that say, here's how you act and here's how you do in these situations. And like, no, no, no. All of this is wrong. It should just be investing in creating a culture where organically your employees care. And then everything else takes care of itself. As long as you've been clear in your purpose and your reason for existing and your values as a company, you don't need to spend time like whining and dining customers and building complex workflows and strategies. No, like, just care. Just empower your employees to care, and that's what makes the difference in these companies that scale. And I would say, a takeaway, whether you're a business owner or in management and you are looking to scale, stay closely connected to your regulars and be attuned to what they're telling you. And that could be in their words, that they're providing direct feedback about what's not working now as you scale, or it could be in their purchasing. They may just stop or slow their purchasing. You need to pay attention to it. In fact, I've seen it happen at least once locally with a restaurant that had become successful and was starting to scale. And the experience changed, the quality went downhill. I don't know if there were regulars actually talking to them, but I know the regulars were talking to them because when I went in there, the regulars stopped showing up. I'm like, uh-oh. The regulars are voting with their money that we don't like the changes that you're making. It's not reflective of the experience that we're used to, which made you special. I'm like, this is not, if they don't listen to the regulars not showing up, this isn't going to work. And it's hard because, you get that taste of success and you're like, oh, we want to magnify this. We want to blow this up and scale it, make it huge and make all this money. And, I get that. But if you're true to your cause and why you started the business in the first place, you can grow, you can scale, but you have to say when's enough, like when is making enough, and I don't want to make more if it's going to destroy the very thing that I set out to create in the beginning. And with this one restaurant, it happened. Like I'm like, they're not listening, the regulars aren't showing up, crash and burn, out of business.
And here's the thing, like revenue is a trailing indicator of that. That's why, to your
It
point,
is,
you
yeah.
you need to be in touch with those regular customers. You need to make sure that you have an idea of how they feel about things, because you're not going to see the revenue change immediately. That's
Hmm.
going to be something, and when it becomes obvious, it may be too late.
It might be too late. Yeah.
By the time it really shows up that, oh God, like those people that we used to count on during the low season, if we're in a tourist town, um,
Yep.
that would help us get it through. Because, like, again, I use the Jersey Shore as an example, because I mean, yes, I also have a romantic view of the small town.
Hmm.
Like I grew up in the suburbs, but like I've told you several times, like where I'm at in the suburbs, it's not the suburbs anymore.
Yeah.
It's one
It's the
step below the
city.
city.
Yeah.
It's one step below the city at this point. Um, like we are like, in one of the more densely populated areas of the state, outside of Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and State College.
Hmm.
It's just because everybody lives here and either commutes into Philly or commutes up to New York,
Mm.
because it's a 2-hour train ride
Yeah.
from here to New York. But that aside, like I have this romantic view of the small town. And, I definitely eventually want to, live in a small town. The Jersey Shore is pretty close. It gives me that taste of it in the off season. But like there's businesses that they are seasonal businesses. They close right after Labor Day, or maybe they go to the first weekend in October, and then they don't open up again until April. But then there are those that are year round, and if they don't keep in touch with their regular customers, they're not going to survive. While they make, and the reason I know some of the stuff is about 20 years ago, right as I was getting out of college, a friend and I were actually looking to open up a business in one of the shore towns. And we
Mm.
were talking with people, and they're like, you will make, depending upon like the type of business, you'll make the amount of money you would make 12 months a year in where I'm at now in 3 to 4 months. But like if you're going to be open all year round, you need to make sure that you take care of the locals and take care of the regulars, because if not, you will go out of business.
Yeah.
Or you got to be really, really good with budgeting, that the money that you make in those 3 to 4 months, tide you over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I love that as the takeaway from this conversation. Speaking of regulars, in that one, don't take them for granted. They are a critical piece to your success as a company. And two, listen to them, especially if you're looking to scale at any type of pace. Use them as your barometer, that are we making decisions to scale in a smart way? Because if your customers, again, either verbally or non-verbally, are telling you they don't like the changes and the experience you're creating, you should listen to them, because they're most likely right.
yeah. Cool. So I want to wrap up there. I have a few more things I want to dig into in this topic, which will continue next week. But yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining me this week. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this topic.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah.
Because also like there are sometimes it's like, God, I should just open up like some kind of little business that's like a shack on the beach. I could live on the beach.
Yeah.
There are days where I think of that.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
Cool.
All
Well,
right.
thank you much, and we'll talk to everybody later.
See you.
See ya.